600 meters beneath the Caribbean, off the coast of Cartagena, there is a debris field on the seabed with bronze cannon lying in it and gold coins scattered through the silt. It has been down there since 1708. It is the single richest thing ever lost at sea, and we know exactly where it is. And 4 separate parties have a serious legal claim to it. Not one of them is the person who found it, because almost everyone believes maritime law works on finders keepers. It doesn't. It never has. And in 2007, the company discovered exactly how badly that assumption fails, after it had already brought 500,000 coins to the surface. By the end of this, you'll know why finding treasure is the easy part, and why the finder is the only person in this story with no rights at all. The ship was the San José, a Spanish galleon, flagship of a treasure fleet, hauling 6 years of accumulated wealth out of the Americas to pay for a war. Gold, silver, emeralds, thought to include millions of coins, most of it dug out of colonial mines in what is now Peru and Bolivia. On the 8th of June, 1708, a British squadron intercepted the fleet off Baru. The fighting went badly. Then the San José's powder magazine detonated. She went down in minutes with roughly 600 men aboard. For 307 years, nobody could find her. And when somebody finally did, the interesting part wasn't the gold. It was that nobody can agree what it's worth. You'll see $17 billion quoted constantly. You'll also see 2 billion, 4, 7, 18, 20, 31. Those aren't refinements of each other. They're separate guesses made by different people about a cargo nobody has ever inventoried. There's a reason the range is that wide. The ship's manifest is incomplete, and deliberately so. A significant amount of what came out of the Americas moved untaxed and unrecorded to dodge the Crown's cut. So the paperwork undercounts the cargo by an unknown margin. Then the harder problem. What is a 1708 gold coin actually worth? Melted down, it's a commodity price. Sold as a collector's object with a provenance and a story, it's worth many times that. But dump tens of thousands of near-identical coins onto the market at once, and you crater the price of the thing you're selling. So the value depends entirely on how you sell it, which means the fight isn't really about the gold, it's about who gets to decide. There are 2 completely different doctrines in maritime law, and which one applies changes everything. The first is salvage. Salvage assumes the property still has an owner. You rescued something for them, so you're entitled to a reward, often a generous one. But you never own the thing. You get paid. The second is the law of fines, that one does transfer ownership, and it applies only when the property has genuinely been abandoned. So the entire fight, on every wreck on Earth, comes down to a single question. Was it abandoned? Or does somebody still own it? And in 2007, a company found out exactly how that question gets answered. The hard way. Odyssey Marine Exploration located a wreck in international waters west of Gibraltar and brought up around 500,000 silver and gold coins. International waters, no country's territory. They filed in a Florida court to claim title. Spain intervened and said one thing. That wreck is the Mercedes, a Spanish naval frigate that exploded in 1804. And it is a sovereign warship. Under the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, sovereign property is immune from arrest in American courts, and a warship is never presumed abandoned, not after 50 years, not after 200. The court agreed. It found it had no jurisdiction at all, vacated the arrest, and ordered the entire recovery handed to Spain. The 11th Circuit affirmed in 2011. The Supreme Court declined to hear it in 2012. Odyssey spent years and a fortune, did the work, found the wreck, and received nothing. And then they tried one last argument. It should have worked. It's the moment the door closed completely. Odyssey's fallback was clever. Fine, the hull was a sovereign warship, but a lot of that cargo was privately owned. Merchants' money, being shipped commercially. Private property can't claim sovereign immunity. The court rejected it. It held that, for immunity purposes, the cargo and the shipwreck are interlinked. Peru tried a different angle and argued that silver minted from ore extracted in Peruvian territory was Peruvian property. That failed too. So the rule that came out of it is brutally simple. If a sunken warship's flag state still exists and still wants it, you cannot have it, and neither can anyone whose ancestors' silver is sitting in the hold. By that logic, Spain simply owns the San José, except the San José is somewhere the Mercedes wasn't, and that changes everything. The Mercedes was in international waters, the San José is inside Colombian maritime territory. That single difference changes which court is even allowed to ask the question. Colombia's position is that the wreck sits in its waters, forms part of its submerged cultural heritage, and that Colombia is the party that actually located it. The site is now a protected archaeological area. The coordinates are a state secret. Spain's position hasn't moved. A state warship belongs to its flag, wherever it lies. And there's a quiet detail that shapes everything. Colombia never signed the 2001 UNESCO Convention on Underwater Cultural Heritage. That treaty would have framed this as shared heritage to be protected, rather than an asset to be divided. Without it, the argument stays financial, which is exactly the opening a third party needed. Search Armada, an American salvage company, says it located the wreck back in the early 1980s and handed Colombia the coordinates. It is pursuing roughly $10 billion, about half the cargo, through the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague under a United States-Colombia trade agreement. Colombia's answer was to commission Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution to examine those 1982 coordinates. Woods Hole found them off by as much as 10 kilometers. 10 kilometers on a seabed is not close, but it isn't nothing either, and the tribunal is weighing an investment claim, not a treasure claim. Those are different questions with different answers. And there's a fourth claim. It has almost no legal machinery behind it, and by far the strongest moral case. The Curana Nation in Bolivia argue that the silver in that hold came out of their territory, extracted by their people. Under forced labor, it wasn't traded, it was taken. So on their account, Spain's flag in Colombia's waters and an American company's coordinates are all arguments about who gets to keep stolen property. Legally, that's the weakest of the four claims, because international law has almost no mechanism for it. Peru already tried a version of it in the Mercedes case and lost. Morally, it's arguably the only claim in this story that isn't about paperwork. So run the original question properly. You find it, what do you actually get? Realistically, nothing, and possibly a lawsuit. If it's a warship, you get sovereign immunity in your face. If it's in someone's territorial waters, you get their heritage law. If you signed a contract first, you get whatever that contract survives. And Odyssey proves contracts don't always survive. The finder is the only party in this entire story with no recognized claim of their own, which is arguably the point. The alternative is a world where the seabed belongs to whoever gets there first with a winch, and the only wrecks left intact are the ones nobody could profitably tear apart yet. So here's the genuine question, and I don't think it's clean. One view, excavate it, catalog it, display it, and pay the finder properly. Because without commercial incentive, most of these sites are never found at all. Nobody funds a decade of deep water searching for a museum credit. The other view, leave it exactly where it is. It's a war grave with 600 men in it. The cargo is the physical proceeds of forced labor, and the moment money enters the room, the archaeology loses. Raise it and pay the finders, or leave 600 men and their gold on the seabed. Tell me below and tell me why. I want the disagreement. Because for now, nothing has changed. There is still a debris field 600 meters under the Caribbean, with bronze cannon lying in it and gold coins scattered through the silt. And not one of the four parties fighting over it is the person who found it.